Well, hello, hello. Today we have the honor of welcoming Linda from Bountycaster, who probably everyone knows. I feel like you're a ubiquitous presence. And you've been building on Farcaster for longer than a lot of the projects we see around now. Things have really taken off, right?
Yeah.
Relative to when you started.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see the reception for Bountycaster and seeing people get paid out for doing work and making connections. It makes us really happy. But yeah, still have a long way to go.
What is it they say, day one?
Yeah, pretty much. Actually needs to be a sustainable business, and all of that.
That is actually, so the first thing I wanted to ask you about is what made you go from the VC world to building your own business? How did that happen? So I don't know when you made that decision or what drove the decision.
Yeah, so VC is a really interesting and fun space because you get to talk with a lot of really incredible founders and just learn many different industries and areas within crypto in my case. But like I had been doing it for 6 years and I really missed kind of being more hands-on and building because you're investing in a lot of really amazing people, but you're not like actually the one to do it and you're kind of on the sidelines a bit. And so like after 6 years, I was like, I feel like I'm really losing my sense of being just really like hands-on with things. So I knew I wanted to get back on the builder side. It was just a matter of like wanting to make sure that I saw it through in terms of like the teams that we worked with and the fund itself, making sure we were being responsible to our LP. So I knew a little bit before the 6 years, actually quite a bit before the 6 years, but for me it was like important to see something through. And then in terms of starting a company, like it was like, oh, do I join something or do I start something? And I really like just being able to take things from 0 to 1. That's something I've always enjoyed doing, and so ended up meeting my co-founder Daniel, who's Pyros B3 on Farcaster, and we just really connected in terms of our values and mission of wanting to further crypto for positive use cases in the world. And so we just like, let's just team up and try to build something. So it was really like organic, but I'm glad I made that decision. Like I know for sure that building long run is the best thing for me.
So you met each other first and then came up with the idea, it wasn't the other way around?
Yeah, I know that's like because like people will often be like, you have to like like live and breathe and this is your obsession and then you just build it. And in our case we were like, well, we feel like there's a lot of just like products in crypto that aren't necessarily moving the needle in terms of crypto being used for payments and are really like furthering why we're here in the first place. Like there's like Splits is a team I absolutely love. Like I think these kind of things are really what makes crypto powerful. But when there's just a lot of like speculation and those kind of stuff taking off, it kind of it's a little frustrating. And so we were like, we both want to do this, and it's going to take a lot of time to figure out how can we align that and figure out what we wanted to build. So we approached it that way first. For me, it's like really important who ends up being like a co-founder or something, because this is someone you're going to be spending an extreme amount of time with. So I personally would have rather been like, okay, let me make sure we're just like aligned first and then we work on something together. But I know it's like very often done the other way around. I don't think there's a right way to do it. Personally, I was optimizing for like who I'm working with and what our values are. Cause like in the end, like it didn't have to be Bountycaster. It could have been some other version that we feel really positive about. But in the end, like it was us working together that we were excited by.
And were you two both on Farcaster at that point?
So I had maybe like a few months ago convinced Daniel to get onto Farcaster, but he was kind of just like, like it's just like when you see like, oh, it's like decentralized Twitter or something. It's like a lot of people are just like, okay, like I don't really care. It's not the thing that draws someone in, and so he kind of just like downloaded it and was just like, okay, there's not that many people on here compared to Twitter, so I'm not that interested in it. But when we were exploring ideas to start, I was like, okay, like you have to take another look at Farcaster. Like I know that you first looked at it, but this is like there's like really incredible community, and then just like primitives. This was even before frames, but it's just like there's a lot of like incredible primitives here that I think we could like explore building in. And there's just like a really good builder culture. So like if we want to launch something, this is a great way to test it and iterate and then just like kind of refine it into a better product. So at the very least, this is a good like, hey, ship an MVP and just see how it goes. And so that's kind of how we landed on Farcaster. And then it was like, okay, well, what do we build on Farcaster? And simultaneously, we had been exploring bounties because I mean, part of why I joined this crypto space in the first place, this was like over 10 years ago, of like, I care about crypto being used for payments. That's something like that really resonates a lot with me because it's especially it's just like global
Hmm.
and it's instant. You're not paying a bunch of fees for it, and so that is just the most compelling reason for me. And I mean, my family they're from China, and to just withdraw money out of China into the US, into the bank accounts, has been a decades long process because there's all these capital restrictions. And just seeing that process growing up, and still to this day, like the money is still being withdrawn since I was like a child, that's just really crazy to me. So, like, having crypto being used for global payments is really powerful. And so, like, if people are doing online work and getting paid for it in crypto, like, that is actually a real compelling use case for crypto. It's not just like tacked on. This is just a better version of what currently exists. And so we wanted to see that exist. And there had been multiple attempts at it in the past. So there's been like Bounties Network, Gitcoin Bounties, Earn.com, and like a bunch of variations of it. And so we approached it from like, okay, like why didn't they take off or work, and why did they pivot out? And so we ended up chatting with a bunch of them, and so there was a bunch of reasons, but it's like we basically wanted to see, was there anything that is net new from when they tried that actually addressed some of the pain points. And some of them were Farcaster didn't exist, so there was no like social layer you could build on top of permissionlessly. Whereas like on Twitter, you're going to get rate limited and maybe eventually kicked off the platform. I've had founder friends that have had that happen to them on Twitter. So that's a new primitive. The other primitive that's new is actually AI. So how can you use AI to actually scale a business better than like super manual work, or like use AI to lower friction for users? So I felt like that was concretely different. The third piece was stablecoins exist now. So back then they had to use ETH as the payment, and like people don't generally want to be paid in a super volatile currency if this is like their actual freelancing work that they're doing. And so we felt like stablecoins were a really powerful primitive. And then the last one was actually L2s, because back then you're also paying a huge amount of money for gas fees. And so we felt like there were enough primitives here that we wanted to take another shot at it, and just see what happened. It wasn't going to necessarily be like, oh, we know this is like, immediately going to take off, but like, let's see what happens. And so we just built a MVP in a month. Daniel's like really, really scrappy with code, and he uses AI to really like do a crazy app. So built the MVP in a month, and we just kind of saw how it went, and we saw that like it was really resonating with the Farcaster community. Like people would just use it organically, and it was a way of like, hey, I need work done. I'm just gonna tag our bot, Bounty Bot, and get it posted. I don't have to create a new account, go to like, Upwork or Fiverr, and then like manage that process. It's just within the feed of where I already am. So people resonate with it. I think we're at the point where it's just like, well, Farcaster needs to grow. So that's kind of our story.
There are so many interesting threads there. And it's true that open social, like there have been a bunch of attempts at it, but Farcaster, at least for me personally, is the one that has like hooked me the best. And it is so cool to see what can be built if you don't have to worry about being deplatformed or, charged a lot of money to keep using the platform.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting to see how all these different, more functionality proliferating on top of the protocol. Something I was curious about is when you started, so you mentioned frames didn't even exist at that point. Was that why, do you think you would have like started differently, or how did it work also pre-frames? I don't think I didn't try it at that point. I wasn't around yet.
Yeah, it was just purely the bot. So you interact with the bot by just talking to it as it currently is. But then it was only like if you want to manage your bounty, it's like at bounty bot complete, cancel, in progress. So it was very like just like bot only kind of interface. Had frames existed, oh absolutely. Like frames is such a powerful primitive. I remember like Frames Friday when they released that. Like it was like so clear of like, okay, this is like something that doesn't exist on other platforms. I can't build a frame or mini app. I actually like not fan of the term frame. I've been like trying to push for it called mini apps or apps because it's just like way more understandable. But anyways, it's like you can't build something like this in a Twitter, right? Like it's just like the tools don't even exist. And so the fact that we can just build this like interface where people can interact with it, it was really powerful in a feed. So we were really excited about it, and like and actually like I think like the Frames Friday is what drove a lot of our user volume, because like right after that, there were so many bounties for people being like, someone build a frame for this, someone build a frame for this. A lot of companies being like, hey, we need like a frame strategy, like let's put up a bounty. So that ended up like kind of kickstarting a lot of our like momentum too. So that was really great for us.
And then even in the time that Bountycaster's been around, which is what, like a year, a little more than a
Yeah,
year,
a little over a year. Yeah.
AI has like come a long way. And how has that changed things on your back end?
Yeah, it's so advanced. Like it's like in the beginning, like we had to kind of give it a lot more like hard coded requirements of like we can't let it deviate too much because it just hallucinates. And now it's like so good at understanding context that we actually built out like an agent side of it where it's like it can now process submissions. So now if someone's submitting something to a bounty, our bot can actually contextualize here was the original bounty, here was the criteria and the requirements they're looking for, and then here's the submission, how much did it match this. It could review images as well. So it's gone a really long way because in the beginning there's no way, it would have just like constantly hallucinated. And it's only going to get better, so we're really really optimistic about BountyBot being just this very like scalable way for us to be a small team and just like manage all these processes for us rather than like like hire a big team to like manage like each bounty and kind of review it.
What other things have changed over the course of your building process over a little over a year?
I mean, just like Farcaster itself, I feel like a lot has changed because you had that really crazy like hype around frames, and then you had, I mean, it's the like graph of like disillusionment or whatever you call it, and it's like so like it's like I feel like we went through that period of people being like, okay, well like Farcaster growth is not where it needs to be, and there's a lot of people leaving, and there's a lot of like experiments around channels and like that being changed a lot. That was actually like a little hard for us like building on Farcaster during that period because and the Farcaster team, rightfully so, was constantly iterating because they knew they needed to iterate to get closer to product market fit. And so they were constantly making changes and experimenting with things, but being built on top of it, it's like some things actually break or some things no long like you have to make changes to make it like consistent with how Warpcast is. So for example, like channels, when they were made private and now there's like a moderator instead of anyone can post into it, we actually had to reflect that into our bounties where it's like, okay, if you're posting a bounty in this channel, like only certain people can reply and that gets shown. And so there's just like I think like just that entire process over a year of just like the craziness of within Farcaster that has changed quite a bit. And then just like I think crypto as a whole, like the meme coin stuff really changed. So when we first started, we were very adamant about, okay, it's USDC and ETH. Like those are the currencies we support, and that's all you can pay people out in. Because like we were a little bit not religious, but we were like a little bit like we don't want just all these like random long tail of just random stuff. But then Degen came along, and there were so many people that were like, we want to be able to pay bounties in Degen. And that was like a long discussion between us of like how much do we think about these like meme coins and like other kind of longer tail. And this is not Degen what it is now. It was Degen like, hey, I have an idea, Degen. And so that kind of opened the floodgates for us of like, okay, this is like a really powerful community, and Yasik is like very visionary with how he thinks about this, and Degen tipping is like really cool. And so people can actually post a bunch of bounties through just tipping, and it's not even their money. It's kind of wild. And so once we added Degen, then we just started adding a bunch more tokens. And so it was always gated by me, basically. Like people would be like, oh, can I post in this currency? And then I'd be like, yeah, and then I'll add it. And over time, there were so many, I couldn't even keep up with it. So we just enabled that anytime there's like a dollar sign and a token after it, the bot just processes that as its own payment systems. I think that evolution's been like really interesting, and we learned a lot through the process too of like you also need to keep up with where the market is as well, right? It's like you can't be too strict on your product and where you think should happen, or even just be too slow on where people actually are. You need to like keep in that direction. So Degen is like our third most used currency, and there's like all these like long tail that get posted a lot. So that was like it was like a growth lesson for us of like really understanding how to think about product.
Is something that like comes up a lot in these conversations as a challenge also is how frenetic the market or like the ecosystem is, and how things are constantly changing. There's like a new meta every week. Is that something that you guys deal with? How do you not get distracted? Or how do you decide which trends to tap into as they come along?
That's so hard, right? Because like if you're just like always like shiny new object and you just like go after your product is just like this like horrible amalgamation of like a lot of random things and like you waste a lot of time. It's just really hard. I think it's real like I mean it's really a case by case basis honestly, but like I generally look like okay, who is involved in this meta, like are they high signal people and like people I really respect, like in what swung degen for me was I actually got on a call with Yasik and met him, and I was like wow, he's really thoughtful, he's really sharp, and he works hard and cares about this community. This is not just some random token. And then I started meeting more like meme coin people who like they're just using this as a way to manage a community. Like I was being very dismissive of it. Like, oh, like so many of these are just like about speculation and people trying to get rich quick. And
You're not wrong.
yeah, but
There are
and
exceptions.
exactly. So it's like that's not everybody. So it's like I think just learning like if there are metas that people that I respect or think are really competent are like paying attention to or like actively building or working in, like that's really high signal. Whereas if it's just like a bunch of like random people on Twitter that are like promoting something and I have no overlap of people that follow that, like I generally don't, like I kind of tune that out as noise. So I kind of rely on that signaling. And the AI agent one is like the next one. And we've been like huge on AI. I mean, our bot is like, that was like the first version of it. And so we think that's like the biggest one yet. Like we're so optimistic on agents and like, yeah, there's a lot of speculation stuff going on, but the actual like technology and like how it changes dynamics for users is like game changing. So
Well, and you also mentioned how it's enabled you to scale much more easily. Because I remember you were doing a lot more sort of manual curation. And I assume a lot of that has been taken over by the agent as it's now more, or by your like back end. I don't know if the word agent also applies. Like what encompasses the bounty bot agent? Like where the boundaries are in that concept. I'm sort of
yeah, so the I mean it's like there's no like actual definition, right? But like so the way we viewed it, like the beginning it was a bot. And because it's really like you do this one action and this happens. Like it's generally very like deterministic and like how it's acting. The agent side is it's now able to like start making some decisions on its own on others' behalf. So in this case, have converted Bountybot. Bountybot is now an agent. It's actually a little split brain though because we don't want it to be too crazy on its own because we still want it to be confirming bounties. So the process is it looks at a cast and determines first. It's like a routing system. First, is this a bounty or is this not a bounty? And then if it's a bounty, have just regular bot bounty, like just handle that. And then if it's not one, have the agent handle it. And so now it's able to like think better. And so it's like, is this a submission? Is this a question? If it's a submission, like log that as a submission and now like surface that to the user. And then eventually it's going to be able to, like we're building it out right now, it's able to pay out bounties on behalf of someone else. And so the reason we're doing this is, I can get into this later because it's like a whole can of worms, but we believe that like AI agents are going to be some of our power users, like a huge chunk of our power users, because they're going to be posting nonstop bounties for engaging communities for work. And so these agents themselves, they're not optimized for reviewing submissions. So they're really good at being like, hey, what are things that I can do to engage my own community? Because they have all the context. But when they receive like 20 submissions to something they posted, they don't really have the toolkit to view all of these submissions and pick the best one. However, BountyBot is optimized for that. And so BountyBot is now able to rank and review all submissions. That already exists right now. And then the AI agent can actually default to BountyBot just selecting the winner for it and just using the funds to pay it out automatically. So that's where we feel like we get into agent world, because it's taking actions on behalf of something and it's literally like running on its own. Because instead of me having to be like, hey, here are the winners, like I'm helping this agent like facilitate it. Like it's full like agent to agent flow.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the crazy part is it's because it's all natural language. There's no API needed at any point. They just talk to each other. Like Aetherbot learned how to post bounty on its own. We never taught it that. It just learned by interacting through cast. We feel like that's just going to be like the future of just like bot to bot. It's like the new B2B. it's bot to bot.
Oh man, that's a good tagline.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to say that. But it's like corny, but yeah, it really is though.
I mean, sometimes corny works.
Sometimes corny works, like the whole warplet
Oh,
meta. I just, yeah, I'm not. Oh, or like Jesse with his like on chain. Hey, do you want to make $50? Have you seen? So corny sometimes works and goes viral, but I'm like a little bit not great about leaning into it, like personally.
well, I think as you said about frames, it is opaque. You know, like what the hell is a warplet? I do find it funny, but it is perhaps not the best for like integrating new people.
Yeah, I like more descriptive things. Like it's a Warpcast wallet. Like I'm good with that.
I am curious about the Bountycaster user base and like whether that has fluctuated over time, the types of tasks, because you mentioned like AI agents being part of your user base. Like that's an interesting thing. And I wonder like what's the balance currently?
Yeah, so right now it's I would say it's like a mix of just like individuals that need help with various tasks. So it's a lot of like solo founders or solo like builders that want maybe some help with dev work. So that's a really common one. The other section is I would say like companies that want to engage with their own like have users engage with their own tools. So like, hey, build something on top of us. So a little hackathon style, or like give us feedback on our docs. That's another common one. Or give us use our product and give feedback, and we're looking for user feedback. So I'd say that's like, I mean, like maybe like 60-70% of it is just individuals and the remaining is companies. We had 7 AI agents posting bounties through us. We actually had to turn them off because they were going crazy. They were posting like nonstop, like Aetherbot was posting like dozens of bounties in a day, because it was just like anytime someone talked to it, it would be like let me set up a bounty for you. And it was like not able to pay out because they couldn't review the work, and so we had to turn that off. And that's why we then ended up building the bounty bot review system. And so then we're getting close to the process of turning it back on to now like integrate with everybody. And we're working with Superchain Eco to like test that flow, because they're doing some like mass distribution bounties and seeing if our bot can handle. So yeah, we're working on that. But that's our user base. How that's changed over time is, I guess at the beginning it was like very frames-esque. And so that frenzy, like we really followed, like it was kind of like a direct correlation with Farcaster growth. Because it's like when there's all this frenzy around Farcaster, like everybody wants to post bounty. And so that was like, I would say very challenging when Farcaster went through a lull, because like we weren't seeing that same growth. So we actually, at that point, we added Twitter as our other platform. And so my co-founder and I had like a very long back and forth discussion on should we expand to Twitter or not, or I guess X now. And yeah, we ultimately were like, we need to just be where the users are at. So let's add that as an option. And we actually have a fair bit of Twitter users. The only very incredibly frustrating part about the X product on Bountycaster is that there are no frames equivalent, and we are rate limited. So the bot actually responds after like 5 minutes versus like instantaneously. There's no frames to actually manage your flow, so it directs you to go to the website once somebody interacts with it. So it's like it's definitely like an inferior experience. And so I think that's the hard part, is like you can't control the experience as well. And then the last part is not everyone has a crypto address. So now you have to 100% confirm and coordinate all of the payments, versus on Farcaster, we just default, if you want to pay through us, you just the pay button just directs to the most recent verified Farcaster address. It's like that was, so we had to launch there because we needed to expand, but it's just not as good of an experience. But yet it still did drive, like we were able to maintain, like instead of like falling off like in terms of a number of bounties posted, we actually remained like the same. So that was because of Twitter integration. Yeah, I would say like pretty optimistic about Farcaster's trajectory this year. So I think we're in it for like another big growth. But at the same time, like I think we're very comfortable betting on Farcaster. Like this is like, it's like this is where we feel like we have alpha, where it's like, you know, not everybody sees it, and if you can build early, like that's where you're going to get rewarded. So we're pretty confident. And like, oh, another aspect is in this AI agent world, Farcaster is actually the best place for all these agents to exist, right? Because they're not rate limited and everyone has a wallet and you can just interact with everybody. So when this inevitably all takes off with the agent side, we're probably going to see proliferation within the Farcaster ecosystem. So we want to be like the place where everybody just coordinates work.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see the agent to agent or bot to bot
Yeah.
ecosystem and how that ends up working out. So I'm curious about how BountyBot evaluates the quality of submissions, because that strikes me as a potentially, because it's subjective, or is it?
It's
I mean, how do you
it's
handle that?
it's subjective. I mean, it's like, so basically it reads the initial cast and just everything that it's looking for, and then it just bases off that like whether the submission matches. It's pretty freaking accurate. Like it's like if I look at a sort of submissions, it's like generally how I would evaluate it too. Even with images as well. We are going to start incorporating like some like social graph data, maybe like to help reduce spam and people trying
Mhm.
to farm. It can definitely, like, what it can definitely do is it can filter out low quality responses. So it's actually very, very good at that. You have all this criteria that's needed, and your response does not even include this. So it's just like matching in comparison. When where it's a lot harder to get right is like, okay, among the top three, which one's the higher quality? But it's been like shockingly good. Like we just feed it these examples. So like all we're doing is like, here's a bounty example. Here are all these different submissions. These are the ones that are the highest ranking ones. And so that's basically how we built BountyBot this entire time, of just like, just feed it a bunch of examples and it kind of just is basing off of that.
It's so cool that that's possible now.
Right?
It's really incredible. So it'll in the future be able to also handle paying out, like select a winner and pay out. Will you do that through like escrow or?
Yeah. So we set up. I mean, it's all in like admin mode right now. We can technically flip it on for any user, but every bounty now has a safe created behind it that basically acts as this like pre-funded amount, and so that amount can now be accessed by their Farcaster verified address and us. It's a multi-sig. And so anytime they go like at BountyBot complete and they say like here are the users that completed, or they go through the frame, it'll actually just like auto pay out the funds. So we're pretty excited by that flow because it'll help streamline the process a lot. But as you know, like, anything that touches users' funds, we need to be very careful about. So this is like a very long process around this feature.
I'm curious if you're thinking about business model at this point. Like I know you did some sponsorships in the past. As far as I know, you still don't charge any fees. Is that right?
Yeah. So this was actually something that we spent a lot of time thinking about. We chatted with a bunch of these like bounties platforms I mentioned in the past, and we looked at the kind of like bounties model right now outside of crypto. And the standard model is you take a cut of bounty. The huge problem with this model is that doesn't scale well at all. So when you look at something like DEX trading or just regular trading, and you're taking a percentage of that volume, that scales extremely well, right? You can have one user doing like tons and tons of volume and you're taking a cut of it. In this case, you're running like $20 bounties, $10 bounties, right? 100, right? 100 is usually on the larger side if someone needs something done, or let's say 1,000. But it generally doesn't go to like, hey, I'm putting up $1 million bounty right now. And every one of these bounties is nuanced and is case by case of if this is successful or not. And so it's really hard to scale that, because taking a 10% fee, let's say on $100 bounty, is just $10, right? But you need to make sure, because you're the middleman and you're taking a cut, that this is successful. And should any disputes happen, which are very, very common in bounty world, if you are the middleman, you are responsible for mediating that dispute and making sure both sides are happy. But you're doing a lot of that work for $10. In like a good case, because $100 is generally on the larger side. So this model doesn't scale very well. You have to have like crazy volume. But let's say that you even had like $10 million of completed bounties, which is like a really crazy number. Like in a year we've had like, I mean, it's really hard to say because it's self-reported. So let's say like maybe like K or two, maybe even 1 million of completed bounties. So it's like you take a 10% cut of that, and that's like K, right? And that doesn't even pay a single person's salary in the US. So that's kind of hard to scale that, right? So it's like, okay, $10 million are completed. that's still $1 million, right? Like you can't really like have a team of people behind that, especially like if you're paying for like senior software engineer salary in Silicon Valley or something. So this model is just really hard to scale. So we looked at what are companies that have been able to scale really well. And we actually looked at Craigslist. So Craigslist, I'm like obsessed with Craigslist. So they facilitate peer-to-peer markets, right? Like they never check in like, hey, how did your transaction go? Like, okay, we're going to take a 10% cut of it. Yet Craigslist makes $600 million to $1 billion a year. Yeah.
It's way more than I would have guessed.
Exactly. Like no one, like that's why I feel like Craigslist is the most like underrated company, and they have 50 people. Yeah, because it's just peer-to-peer.
And they've also been around for like decades.
Yeah, and look at their website, right? Like there's not that much going on. And so we really like took a lot of inspiration for that model. It's like, okay, if internet strangers can facilitate transactions of meeting up in person with each other, well, they can facilitate like online transactions with each other, and all we can do is surface reputations. This is their Farcaster account, this is their Twitter account, here's how many bounties they've posted in the past, here's how many payouts they've done, here's how many people have completed bounties, here's the number and dollar value of ones they've completed, here's shout outs they've received for doing past work. So if we can like facilitate and surface this information, we can have these bounties be peer-to-peer where they're interacting with each other, and we can run a similar business model like with Craigslist, and also Facebook Marketplace is like another comparison, doing all these transactions, but they actually make money in other ways. So we want to monetize peripherally, and so sponsorships are one of them. So right now on Craigslist, the way they earn money is you pay to post a full-time job, or you can pay to post in certain categories like New York apartment rentals. And so this is kind of like an advertisement in a way. It's like, but it's like you're paying to post. So we have a job board where companies can pay, we literally picked $75, so that's what Craigslist charged. It's $75 to post a job. It has a really similar, like the audience is like kind of a similar overlap with bounties, because it's like, okay, if you're doing a bunch of dev bounties, okay, you're probably in a similar category to be targeted, looking at here's some like, dev jobs in the crypto space. So that's one model we have. The other is just sponsorship. So if a company is trying to promote their bounty more, that's a source of revenue for us, because they, let's say, are running a hackathon and they want to have like way more entries, or really surface like the best devs to participate. And that at the top, we can pin that in our channel. We can like include that, blast it out in like more of our email subscriptions. So it's like very like advertisement kind of model, which we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Like this works for traditional companies. And so we've been able to earn some, like meaningful revenue for us, in that we definitely can't pay full salaries for sure, but all of our operating costs outside of salaries have been well paid for with just that revenue alone. We also have the hypersub subscription model, so people that want to just support us because they care about what we're doing, and then also they get access to like a few special features, like they get like a unique looking frame when they post a bounty. So just like little things like that. And then the last one is people can tip us. So if they actually felt the transaction was good, our frame just allows you to tip. And we've actually received like a fair amount of tips from people who are just happy with how things went. So we're trying to monetize peripherally. As I mentioned earlier, it's like just like so hard to build a sustainable business, but we are trying to approach it, and like we want to not like, there's this A16Z like presentation that I saw before we started Bountycaster that was saying one of the most important exercises to do before starting your company is, okay, let's assume like the most wild, like successful outcome for what you're trying to do. So let's say like our successful outcome is like $10 million in completed bounties. Like we're so happy with that. Okay, then run the math on what the revenue actually looks like back into it. Does that actually support your business? That will save you so much pain down the line if you can just run that exercise in the beginning. So we're like, okay, we need to be very intentional that we know this business model does not work. Replit, and the way that it can work, so Replit charges 25% cut of a bounty, and even then it's not profitable. So the only way you can make it profitable is you're taking like a 50% cut or something. No one's going to use your platform. Everyone's going to try to route around you. And it's just like a bad experience. Like I don't want to be like taking that from people earning. So I'd rather go like people like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, because they're gaining value and they're not having a company extract value from them, and they're monetizing peripherally. So we just want to be extremely intentional about it. Still TBD on if it works, but we at least know we're not going down a path that like we knew in the end, like even if it was successful, wouldn't have paid the bills. So we're trying at least something else.
That's smart. It's very strategic. You mentioned as part of that, do you have email newsletters? Do you have like a like top bounties of the day type thing?
Not that. So like on the to-do list for sure. The way we automate it is right now is just you can subscribe, so you can just go to Bountycaster XYZ, and then there's a subscribe button, and then you can subscribe to direct cast notifications or email notifications that are sorted by category. So if you only want dev bounties, you'll get dev bounty feed anytime they pop up, and so those will go out each day. So we have a lot of subscribers through that's actually how they find out about bounties.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware of that. I just like you could follow BountyBot and see them coming through. Do you have a sense of like is that the way that most people who are responding to bounties find it, or is through Farcaster like just on the feed or
It's a huge mix. So I would say there's a lot of people that find out just through Farcaster, just seeing in the feed or the channel. There's actually a lot of people that also go to our website, but then there's a lot of people that find it through the email subscription. So it's like honestly it's like a third, one third, one third. Like it's like very wide mix of what people prefer. I will say like the people that like want to be really really on top of bounties, they've been discovering it through BountyBot, so they literally just follow it because you can see it in real time, whereas like the feed is like the subscriptions go like out once per day, and so you're catching it at that batch when it goes out, so the bounty might have been done before it even gets to that point. So the people that are like really on top of it are the ones checking the channel, and they'll like I can see that they're like on it immediately.
Yeah, we've talked about one side of your user base, the people who are posting bounties. What about the people who are responding to bounties? What have you noticed about this group?
Yeah, oh, it's been like super fulfilling, like hearing from this group. So the group is like very global. So we have people like, yeah, straight up like all over the world. We actually had like a very strong Japanese community as well. So that was really interesting because like there'd be so many like Japanese bounties, and then we made like a special like Japanese blossom frame for them, and they like really liked it. But yeah, we have a lot of users in South America, I mean, US, Europe, Africa, like it's seriously so global. But I posted this thread like maybe last week or something, and it was like, you know, if Bountycaster helped you, like could you, you know, share your story or something like that. And it was like really really powerful hearing a bunch of these they have messaged individually before, but we were trying to aggregate stories so we could put it on our website. But a lot of people have been like, this is a way of actually being able to earn like meaningful income, and it's like I was able to just start participating immediately because like I'm already like on this social media account and I'm seeing it in my feed, so I'm able to like participate. But like more importantly, in a lot of cases this led to like kind of more meaningful opportunities for them as well. So like a few of them have gotten like full-time jobs from doing bounties for somebody, and others have been able to meet like very high signal people that they ended up helping to like share their work and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably like, yeah, I mean the most fulfilling and proud part we are of Bountycaster is like the users. They're just all over. And the funny thing is, so a good chunk of our user base are actually people that like you wouldn't expect to do bounties. So because it's in the social feed, a bunch of people have been like, oh, I'll just do it because like why not, it's right there, or yeah, that could be fun to work on, like I've been meaning to learn this. Or it's people like, oh, I want to like get to know biology, I'm just gonna do a bounty that respond to his bounty, who like normally wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna go on Upwork and Fiverr right now and like start earning money there. So it's been really cool because it's like kind of unlocked this like group that's not really like looking to do that kind of like bounty work, but they've been like, yeah, like this is just like a cool opportunity that just popped up. So that's been fun to see as well.
And it's so low friction compared to something like Fiverr or Upwork, where you have to, you know, it takes like an hour to set up your profile on one of those platforms.
Yeah.
Then it's hard to like having all that social context seems so helpful. I mean, it's been helpful for me when I've done bounties. Just like you get to check out people's vibe, you get to see like, do they have credibility? You know,
Yeah,
are they going to rug
exactly.
you?
And like who follows them, like it's a bunch
Mhm.
of people in my, so it's like there's just like way higher signal than just like, okay, now I have to review all these like external factors on this other site that doesn't pull in this information. Yeah, I think that's something that makes us different. It's like we really really lean into the social element.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting that, people are just sort of seeing it floating along, see it pop up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do bounties all the time because I'm like, oh, that looks like, okay, I'll try your app and give you feedback. Like, fun. Like, I'll earn $10. Like, it's just very accessible, and it doesn't feel like it feels like I'm connecting with someone versus like just I got a lot of feedback from people that had done like Fiverr and Upwork in the past, and they were saying how it was very transactional
Mm.
experience, whereas like here it's like there's like this social component. It's like, oh, you're chatting with somebody on your social accounts, and so you're kind of like, maybe you're like, oh, I like their work, I'm just gonna follow them in the future or something like that.
And I love that it's so global because that really circles back to what attracted you or like how you were trying to come up with an idea in the first place is wanting to take advantage of those easy global payments, which is really so magical. Like, I think it's easy for people in the US who haven't worked with people overseas or who don't have family overseas to not realize just how much of a headache it is. The like freedom of movement for money is really, really powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Even just like some of our users are in Argentina, and they've been like, oh, it's been awesome to earn USDC. Like I want to have a stable currency. So yeah, I think it's like we really hit on why we are very passionate about crypto. But like really, like it's like we are so very much still figuring it out, because like at the end of the day, like this isn't a sustainable business, and we're like very aware of that. And like the growth, like it's like, oh, we have like people posting bounties every day, and we have like a very like small passionate, I mean, it's like a few thousand people of like who are passionate about our product, but like at no point is this like an actual like, sustainable business. So I definitely want to make that clear. Like it's like we're proud of what we've done, but like it's not where we want it to be for sure.
Yeah, as far as I know, you're still completely bootstrapped, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's very intentional because, well, I mean, a bunch of reasons, but one of them, it's like, it's not clear this is a venture scalable business. And honestly, like, that's okay. Like, I've really, like, through doing venture, like, I've seen so many companies of like, wow, like, you're building a really great business. Like, this can sustain a small team, and you can get like a very profitable payout for yourself and your teammates, but it's not a venture scale business. But like I really feel like that should be like more okay in this industry, because right now it's like I feel like it's so much of like, oh, you have to raise venture and then hit this home run for you to be like defined as successful. And it's like, well, a successful case can also be two people where their business is like, making millions of dollars a year and paying them, and they're producing value for their users. So it's like that's not venture scale, but it's still a successful outcome for these founders. And so I've been really intentional about that. And then the other piece is like, once you do incorporate like the VC dynamic, it does change dynamics, right? Like you are approaching the way you are running your business model and how you're thinking about your roadmap in a very different way. And it's a neutral situation, right? It's not good or bad in itself. It just changes the dynamics. And so we didn't want to do that to this product at this time, because we feel that there's something really special here that's happening for our users, that we just wanted to see how can we grow organically. And then the third piece was it's just us two. And so fundraising and getting in that entire world of like pitching and meeting all these funds, it's like, it's a lot of work and it's time consuming. So we just wanted to be focused on the product and users for right now. So yeah, those are reasons. I have nothing against VCs. I was a VC. It's just like, I think that I wish that people were more thoughtful about, I'm starting a company, and not immediately going, so my next move is immediately, I'm just going to raise VC. Are there ways that you can get a grant? Can you build a product that just makes money off the bat? Like versus like just the expectation is I just go to VC. So that's I wish there was more of a culture that it's okay that that's not what you do.
I would even say that's one of the various things that's attractive about the builder community on Farcaster is that, I mean, there definitely are people who are going down that VC road, but it's not, I don't think it's even the majority.
No.
Like, there's a lot of, like, much more of a kind of indie hacker ethos of, like, I'm just going to throw something out there and see whether it hits and then keep tinkering with it. And it's really fun to follow along with people's journeys as they're working on, trying to understand how to fit with what users are looking for.
Yeah,
I love
and like
also the, like, building in public, which you do a
yes.
lot of.
I love that. And like I was gonna say Clanker to your example, like they made a few $1 million and there was no VC money and they just kind of like threw that out into the world. So I think it's just so cool. It's part of why I love building in Farcaster.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention, or any sort of like call to action besides, go post the bounty, respond to a bounty?
Yeah, that was my call to action. Just use the product and please give us feedback on it. Like we thrive off feedback and like you're never hurting our feelings. It's only like good for us to hear stuff and of pain points. So yeah, that'd just be my call to action.
All right. Well, everyone go check out. I think the channel is Bounties. Is that right?
Yeah, bounties. And then the site is bountycaster.
Yeah. And BountyBot is always awake and ready to talk to you.
It is, yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was a fun chat.
Thanks for coming on, Linda. It was really interesting to hear how you're thinking about putting things together.
Awesome.
All right.